So you need a 10mm socket for this. I've already loosened them off, cracked them loose. It's just plastic cover actually, this one, this little heat plate. Whip that off. There you go. Actually, in hindsight now, I don't think I actually need to remove that, to be honest, but I've taken it off now. I thought the clamp was behind there, but it's not. So, take the exhaust off. It's 14mm socket you need again. Takes the weight off the bolts and you can get them out. So long, to be honest. But okay, so the bottom two are the same length. One. Okay, so all three bolts are the same length. Don't know if you can see it under here, where my finger is. That's where the clamp is for the exhaust. So once you've loosened that bolt off, the back piece should just lift off. Just need to wiggle it. So I think it's these two bolts actually to drop the caliper out now. Try 12mm. Yep. Let's loosen these off, see what happens. So there's your caliper bolts. Okay, these are both the same length again, so you don't have to worry about that. And this is the shield bit I was talking about. I got confused actually. This is the shield bit you need to remove to give you some space to get the caliper out of its housing. So I think it's back to 10mm again. It's actually marked up there for the idiots, or maybe you're not idiots. No offence to anybody. Maybe it's just Honda's sense of humour. So remove the plate. Okay, so that'll give you access now. Give us a bit of wiggle. Removed. I think we're back to 12mm again now. Yep, 12mm. So 12mm, that's what holds the piston to the caliper housing. Now, I don't know if you can see it there in the picture, there's actually a nut in there that this bolt, because it's like a sliding pivot, this bit here. If you can see it, you don't want to keep twisting it as you'll end up tearing the rubber boot there, like a dust boot, because the caliper slides in and out on the housing. So I'll go and get a correct spanner for that. So you need a 17mm spanner for this now. So really you need to get that in there and support it. Get your socket bit on it again. It literally just holds it actually, because it's releasing now. So you could probably release that finger now, finger loose. Just keep holding that nut in there. You don't want that turning really, as you'll end up tearing that rubber boot. There's the bolt for that caliper. That's to one side. Remember which bolts go where. Now if I remember now, the piston should remove from the... Can you see that? The piston actually pivots out now. There you go. You now have access. Does this slide out? Look at that, there you go. So that actually slides off the housing. Just sit that in there, you don't want to strain those pipe there. So there's your pads inside the housing. They just slide in now. Now your replacement pads may or may not have those shims on the back, these bits. Let's go and get the pads and see what we've got. Okay, so here we go. These literally just slide out now, they should do. There's one. Completely down to bare metal. You can actually sort of see the rivets in there that sort of rivet in. There's nothing left on those at all. If you can see, there's some little stops there, so obviously they're going from opposite sides. So get your new pads. I might pop these in first, I think, before I clip the shims back on. Good idea, give them a bit of a clean. So these just sit back in. Some little springs in there. These are EBC pads that I've bought. Okay, they're quite a good fit, they've gone in, which is quite good. Keep them at their widest point, because you've got to slide these back onto the disc. So that's it, the pads are back in the housing. I'll take these shim pads off, little shims. These will just probably stop the brake pads squealing, no doubt. If you buy original Honda ones, it probably come up with the shim pads will probably be on there. The shim metals. Okay, that's it. Keep your distance as wide as possible, really, because you need the gap to get it. Well, you can see which side this is on because it's got the piston mark there on the shim. Right, what you're going to need to do now is wind this piston back inside its housing to get it back onto the caliper pad housing. So I'll just sit that there a minute, and what I use is a little G-clamp. Good idea to give it a bit of a clean, I suppose. Get all the crud off it. Give that a bit of a clean as well. Right, I'll just get the G-clamp. Okay, so this is what I'll use. You literally just put that in there, or even this way around, whichever way it fits. Wind it in first. Because as the pads wore out, the pistons come further and further out. So get that in there. Get it started in the middle so it gets even pressure. Okay, so just wind it in slowly. You should see the piston going back in. Just Just wind it in as much as you can. Pretty much flush really. You won't go, there's no point going past it being flush. That's it, it's as far as it goes. So release that. Okay, so remember there's a pin there. Remember it's hinged into it. So let's sit that there a minute. Get all the rubbish out of there. It's alright, it's not asbestos, it's just mud I think. Right, I think what I might do, may or may not be correct, is just get a bit of copper slip or a bit of grease, because these do actually slide up and down these, so I know they don't slip, they go a lot, but it's enough. So remember, back inside the pivot, there you go, so that's in there. Might just need to close these up a little bit. Just close them just enough just to get the caliper to close shut. Right, this thing's sort of spring loaded. I mean, probably that will come out if you want to oil that grease inside of that piston as well. So line that back up. Get your bolt that it came with. Give it a dab of copper slip or some grease. Start it back up. That's probably where you need your 17mm spanner again now. Okay, so you need to hold that there. Wind that back in again. Okay, hold this steady and just nip it up. You don't want to let your pads flying off. Okay, so hopefully you got the gap still there. And just check your disc. I think this disc may need changing on the next change probably. Now's a good time also, because you can't actually get to any of this once your exhaust is all in position, can you? Give us a bit of a clean if you can, if you want to, if you're interested. You won't get to it once the exhaust is all back together and everything. This bit's pretty neglected, isn't it? Now hopefully that's open wide enough now. Inside there. So you just need to offer it back inside on the gap. Make sure the pads haven't moved. There we go. That's easy enough, I thought. Okay, so now get your bolts. I've already got, you see I've still got copper grease on this from the previous time I've offered these in. And the other one. Offer that in as well. Okay, so I think you're back to your 14mm. I think we're back to our 14mm now, aren't we? Wherever that is. Is that correct? No, it's 12mm. I think. Is that the 12mm one? Which is probably on the tool anyway. I suppose really you should get the correct torque setting for this. Get your torque spanner, find the correct setting, torque them up correct. Don't over tighten them, obviously you don't want anything splitting or shearing. Get them up nice and tight. I think I'm happy with that. Okay, so that's back in position now. Okay. Up. Put them back on. Back to our 10mm. Okay. So really then we didn't need to take off this lower guard. I thought it was covering the joint, but it's not. So that's it, your pad's back in place now. So next step is get your exhaust back on. Might just put a little bit of grease on here just to help it back on. Back on. Might need just to wiggle it back in. Okay, get your bolt on. Just put a bit of copper slip on there again. So get these up nice and tight. Just double check they're all tight. The exhaust flying off. Back to this again now. It's the not quite sure what this is for actually. Maybe some kind of stone guard or something, or just looks like an extension of the exhaust piece really. Not quite sure what it is, but it's obviously there for a reason. It's made of plastic, whatever it is. Can't do a great deal of whatever. Right, last thing to do, because you've wound the piston back in now, the pads won't be seated on the disc. So you just need to keep pumping the brake lever until you feel pressure on it. You don't want to go out for a ride and then you've got no brakes at all. So just keep pumping the brake lever. So you feel the pressure, just keep going, it's nice and tight. Okay, so that's it now, your pads are all seated. That's it, there you go. That's your brake pads done. Save yourself an hour's labour from Honda. So that's it, that's your pad change. SH300i Honda. Easy peasy. Have a go.